Salvete discipuli. In this portion of the lesson, we're going to be taking a closer look at the imperfect passive voice. Before we get too far along, I'd like to make a special note to you here, if I haven't said it before, that everything that we're looking at right now with the passive voice applies to our regular verbs, verbs that belong to first, second, third IO, or fourth conjugation. The verb to be and the verb to be able, the two irregular verbs that we have been working with since Latin 1, are never going to be written in the passive voice. So none of these rules will apply to those two verbs. These rules focus only on what we refer to as regular verbs. Here is the passive voice verb inflection chart for regular verbs, and we can see that we now have the imperfect tense endings written on the chart. You should make sure that you write these endings on your chart as well. Make sure to also include the sample translations. You can pause the video while you write those endings on your chart. Now that you have those endings recorded on your chart, let's hear what they sound like. Bar, baris, batur, bamur, bamini, bantur. Do you notice that every single one of these endings starts with the letters ba? The same is also true on the active voice verb inflections chart for the imperfect tense. So those letters ba are indicators that we are looking at the imperfect tense. It doesn't matter whether we're in the active voice or the passive voice. It is the ending that comes after the ba, which tells us that we're in the active or the passive voice. So ar, ris, ter, mer, mini, enter, the exact same endings that we saw up here. They're now in the imperfect tense because of the ba in front of them, but I'm still in the passive voice because I see ar, ris, ter, mer, mini, and enter. It's important to note also that we are going to be using this same system for conjugating verbs in the imperfect tense that we used in the present tense. We find the base, we add a connecting vowel, and then we attach the ending. And when we start to have endings like the imperfect tense endings, which have that consonant and vowel combination, the ba, in front of the pronoun subject ending, ar, ris, ter, mer, mini, enter, it's important to understand the construction of the verb because you don't want to confuse the ba or the a after the b with part of the base of the verb or with a connecting vowel. If you did that and you just saw baris, right, like ama baris, you might be thinking that you're still looking at the present tense. But in fact, you have a base, still a connecting vowel, and now this extra couple of letters, this ba, because it's the part of the verb that is indicating the tense. We are also using the same connecting vowels, and as we move forward, we'll take a look at the same verbs that we did in the previous portion of the lesson, but now in the imperfect tense. We won't spend a lot of time examining each one, but I do want to really focus on how we translate the passive voice. So here is our initial sample verb, the verb amo, amara, amawi, amatum from first conjugation. Notice that when we look at the verb, if I don't understand that I have a base, a connecting vowel, and an ending, I might assume that my verb is just amaba. This is my verb, amaba, but it isn't. My verb is my connecting vowel is a, my ending is bar. And that's how I know I'm in the imperfect tense, because of the presence of this ba. Again, the R tells me my subject. Because I am in the imperfect tense, I can no longer use am, is, or are in front of loved. I have to use was or were, because was or were is the form of to be that indicates it is in the past tense, which is why I'm saying I was loved, or I was being loved. Remember that the imperfect tense can also be translated with the phrase used to. In order to make it be the passive voice, I have to say I used to be loved. I have to throw this be in there. Here's the same verb, but now I have a different subject. So you were loved. Again, same verb, but different subject. Here the subject is he, she, or it. Was loved or used to be loved. Remember that the passive voice is always about this action happening to the subject. So if you forgot to put the was or this to be into the translation, then the subject would be doing the action. And you can always ask yourself that as you're writing and reading what you have written. Is the subject doing this, or is it being done to the subject? That's a really clear way of understanding whether or not you're translating the passive voice correctly. Remember that in the third person singular, you can have a noun as the subject. So here the queen was loved. We're switching gears now to a second conjugation verb. So our connecting vowel is now the letter E. We were moved. You were moved. Here again, I've got a second conjugation verb because of the EO and the ERE. So that means I see the base del with the connecting vowel E to create they were destroyed. You can have a plural noun as the subject of that verb. The cities were destroyed, or the cities used to be destroyed. Now I'm looking at a third conjugation verb. Let's look at this slide first for third conjugation verbs. Remember that it had all those funky vowel changes in the present passive, but in the imperfect passive there are no funky vowel changes. I will see the letter E for a third conjugation verb, and IE if I'm dealing with third IO or fourth conjugation. So when I look at this verb, I see the base mit, I see the connecting vowel E, which is what I have here, and then I have my baris ending. You were being sent. Same verb, this time I've changed the subject to we. Let's go back and look at this one. It's winko winkera. It's a third conjugation verb, no EO in front of the O. So this is just third conjugation. So I have the base wink, the connecting vowel E, and then my ending. And then you can see that even when I change to third person plural, I'm not going to change the vowel. I'm going to keep it with an E. Here I have a third IO verb. I know it's third IO because of the IO here, which means I now have I and E as my connecting vowels. So kapie baris, meaning you were captured or you used to be captured. Kapie bator, he, she, or it was captured. And then this is what it would look like if a subject were given instead of relying on the ending as the subject. The soldier was being captured. Kapie bantor, in the third person plural, they were captured. And then of course you can use the king and the queen were captured. Here's my fourth conjugation verb. I know it's fourth conjugation because of the IRE. So I see the base pun. I have the connecting vowels IE, and then I have to have my ending bar. Punie bar. Punie baris, you were being punished. Punie bamor, we were punished. Punie bantor, they were punished. Or it could have a plural subject. Discipuli punie bantor, the students were punished. So I think that when we start to look at the imperfect tense, we can really begin to understand why it's important to understand the construction of the verb. Base, connecting vowel, ending. So that I can understand that the ba that I'm looking at is not part of the verb itself, but is merely part of the ending, and that ba helps me to understand that I am in the imperfect tense. You're going to have an opportunity to answer some questions about the things that we've seen here regarding the imperfect tense. Primarily, it's going to be focusing on, are you able to distinguish between the present passive and the imperfect passive just by looking at them? Can you tell the difference? And we'll also have some questions that will focus on your ability to translate the imperfect passive into English.